Evening, everyone, and welcome to regular meeting of council for December 21st, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:30. We'll begin the agenda with disclosure of pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have one E3, the Harvest Bowl Grant Application, Resolution 17.
Thank you. So noted. Next is approval of the previous minutes, so a previous meeting of December 7th. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have the resolution, Clerk Adams?
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on December 7th, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves. Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Next on the agenda, we have the presentation, which we took the photo earlier, but Director Spoor, if you want to tell us a little bit more about the Ontario Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council presentation and the Community Assist Program campaign.
Yes, Your Mayor. So we're applied for a grant this year, and the grant was for training materials. And Enbridge Gas, since they service a small area of the community here, we are eligible for this grant. We were awarded the grant for $5,000, which we bought training materials, which is all books and stuff through the Ontario Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council. So tonight was the fact that we get the picture, it's pub ed op, and we get the pictures taken, and then we could promote it on social media, and we had to tag Enbridge in. That was part of our grant. So we received $5,000 towards purchasing training materials, and it was a good news story. Enbridge has donated 250 or 50 different grants this year, up to $250,000 for this year. So they've been doing that for a number of years. So.
Okay, thank you for that update. And again, positive news, just in time for Christmas. Everybody gets new books to support their training. So that's excellent news. Thank you. There's no resolution for this one, right? So we'll move on to public hearing for minor variance. And so may I have the resolution to begin the meeting?
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be called to order at 7:33 p.m. and that Mayor Giguère be appointed chairperson for the Committee of the Adjustment.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves. Counselor Cerna seconds. Counselor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That's carried. So the purpose of this hearing is to consider an application for a minor variance as submitted by owner Donald and Cindy Sproul relating to property at part of Lot 34, Concession 3 in the Township of Malahide, municipally known as 53273 Carlton Line. We have Mr. Steele with us. I think we do. And if you're here, if you could provide us with an overview of the application, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For council tonight is a minor variance application for property 53273 Carlton Line. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling and previously contained an accessory structure that was destroyed in a fire, and the applicant is seeking to replace it with a new structure. The purpose of the minor variance would be to permit a maximum floor area of 223 square meters, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum floor area of 150 square meters in the Hamlet residential zone. Previous minor variance application to permit a slight increase in floor area had been submitted and approved by Committee Adjustment earlier this year. However, subsequent to that approval, the owner has identified a discrepancy between their building plan submitted for building permit and the previous minor variance that was granted. And so the owners have resubmitted the variance to permit the maximum floor area proposed within this application to reflect the building envelope that they are seeking. Staff have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of a minor variance application and found that it meets those 4 tests. And so staff recommend the application be approved subject to standard conditions included with the agenda package. That concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you for that. Before we move to council questions, is the applicant or agent here wishing to provide additional comments? No additional comments? All right. Anyone else? Doesn't look like it. And Clerk Adams, have there been any additional comments received from circulated agencies or landowners not outlined in the summary?
No, there have not.
Anyone else in attendance wishing to make any comments regarding this application? Not seeing anyone. Do any of the committee members have any questions regarding this application? Counselor Leach.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So to clarify, this is just a downsizing, we could say, of the original variance request to the actual envelope that's being built.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the previous application had permitted a smaller increase in the floor area. And when the owner had submitted for building permit, they realized there was a discrepancy between the building or a larger building they wanted to construct and the previous minor variance. So this is a slightly larger permission that was previously granted with the original minor variance application.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. So I'll thank all of those in attendance for your input on the application and now ask the committee to make their decision on the application. Clerk Adams, can you read the resolution, please?
That report number DS 23-39 entitled Application Number D13 MV 0923 of Donald and Cindy Sproul and affecting lands described as part of Lot 34, Concession 3 in the Township of Malahide and being 53273 Carlton Line be received, and that the Township of Malahide Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application number D13 MV 09-23 to permit an increase in the maximum floor area for an accessory structure, and that the approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner applicant obtain the necessary building permit within 2 years from the date of decision to the satisfaction of the chief building official, ensuring that the approved variance applies only to the proposed accessory structure as illustrated within the application, and that the structure be constructed as per the details shown in the drawings as provided with the application, site location, and architectural detail to the satisfaction of the chief building official.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moved, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor? And that's carried.
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be adjourned and that council meeting reconvene at 7:38 PM.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna moves, Counselor Lewis seconds, all in favor? That's carried. Next on the agenda, we have a public meeting. So I will call this meeting to order with the following resolution.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of Chad Underhill relating to the property located at Part Lot 29, Concession 1 West, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 52361 Nova Scotia Line be called to order at 7:39 PM.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinski moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. So as it was just stated, this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make a representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to Part Lot 29, Concession 1W, and known municipally as 52361 Nova Scotia Line. So Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
The public meeting was advertised in the Elmer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on November 29th and December the 6th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, can you provide an overview of the application and let us know if there have been any comments received?
Yes, the zoning bylaw amendment is required as part of a previous consent application to serve a surplus farm dwelling. As part of conditional approval of the severance, the owner is required to rezone the proposed retained farmland from general agricultural to special agricultural to prohibit a future residential dwelling. As we're also rezone the proposed separate parcel from the A1 zone to the small lot agricultural and a site-specific zone, which is typically applied to surplus farm dwellings. And the site-specific amendment or provision will also provide a reduced lot frontage of 26.3 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum frontage of 30 meters. There are no concerns with the proposed reduction in frontage, and staff have reviewed the application and find that meets all the criteria of the PPS and official plans. Only comments received to date were from Cabbage Creek Conservation Authority, noting they have no concerns with proposed rezoning. So staff will recommend that the application be approved. That concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Okay, thank you for that. Clerk Adams, have you received any additional written submissions on the proposal?
No additional comments have been received.
Okay, and is there anyone attending in person or via Zoom wishes to speak? We don't have anyone. Any member of council have any questions? Seeing none, if there are no further questions, and then please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of this proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. And if there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following resolution.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of Chad Underhill relating to the property located at Part Lot 29, Concession 1 West, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 52361 Nova Scotia line be adjourned at 7:42 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. And Councillor Glinsky seconds. All in favor? Carried.
The report number DS 23-38 entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application of Chad Underhill Farms Limited, authorized agent Logan Burnett of Harrison Pensa be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z15-23 of Chad Underhill Farms Limited, authorized agent Logan Burnett, Harrison Pensa, relating to the property located at Part Lot 29, Concession 1 West, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 52361 Nova Scotia line be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Wilson moves. Councillor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, do you adjourn this meeting and then reopen it? Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of B&M AM Reimer relating to the property located at Part Lot 19, Concession 5, and known municipally as 50783 Chalet Line be called to order at 7:43 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves. Councillor Cerna seconds. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to Part Lot 19, Concession 5, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 5783 Chalet Line. Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
The public meeting was advertised in the Amer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on November 29th and December the 6th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, can you provide an overview of the application and let us know if there were any other comments received?
Similarly, this zoning amendment is also required as a condition of consent approval for a surplus farm dwelling severance. That would rezone the retained farmland from the A3 zone to the A2 zone to prohibit a future residential dwelling, as well as rezone the proposed severed parcel from A3 to the A4 zone, which is typically applied to surplus farm dwelling lots. Staff review the application, have no concerns with the proposal, and the only comments received to date are from the Cabbage Creek Conservation Authority, and noting they have no concerns with the proposed rezoning. And so staff are recommending that the application be approved. And that concludes the presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you. And Clerk Adams, have you received any additional written submission?
No additional submissions have been received.
Is there anyone attending via Zoom or in person wishing to comment? Okay, so it doesn't appear we have anyone. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Wilson.
Make sure I push the button. This has a stipulation that there's not other residences allowed to be built, separated, whatever, from the farm. Okay, because it's just You know, you can see the silo, the footprint of the old barn. Driveway, equipment parked. It's just looks like a great spot for another house.
Mr. Steele, can you confirm?
Yes, it's correct. The farmland would be rezoned to prohibit a future residential dwelling. This was I think the remnant pieces maybe from the previous farm operation, but I believe are no longer in use. So yeah, future dwelling would not be permitted.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, and please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. And if there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following resolutions.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of B and AM Reimer relating to the property located at Part Lot 19, Concession 5, and known municipally as 50783 Chalet Line be adjourned at 7:46 PM.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves, Counselor Glinski seconds, all in favor? Carried.
The report number DS 23-36 entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application of B and AM Reimer Limited, authorized agent David Rowe of Civic Planning Solutions, Inc. be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z1423 of B and A Reimer relating to the property located at Part Lot 19, Concession 5, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 50783 Chalet Line be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and on the agenda, we have one more public meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order with the following resolution.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of Manel and Zacharias relating to the property located at Part Lot 22, Concession 3, Part 1 of Registered Plan 11R6019 and known municipally as 51048 and 51200 Vienna Line be called to order at 7:47 PM.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Cerna seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. So this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to Part Lot 22, Concession 3, Part 1 of Registered Plan 11R 6019 and known municipally as 51048 and 51200 Vienna Line. Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
The public meeting was advertised in the Amer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on November 29th and December 6th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. And Mr. Steele, one more time, can we provide an overview for this application and you let us know if you received any comment?
Thank you. The primary purpose of this application is to rezone the property to a rural residential site-specific zone that would permit a second dwelling unit, approximately 111 square meters in size, as well as conjoined personal shop that is 184 square meters in size. As part of Official Plan Amendment 20 to the Township of Malahide Official Plan, Council permitted second dwelling units to be established in the agricultural designation subject to certain criteria. As part of that, the owners have filed a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a second dwelling unit on the property. So I reviewed the proposal and found that it meets the criteria of both the provincial law statement, county official plan, as well as criteria set out in the local official plan. While there currently is no developed standards yet for the second dwelling units in the agriculture area, staff reviewed the proposed size of the building as well as other zoning provisions and matters of the criteria and found that the application is appropriate for the subject lands. And so staff recommend the application be approved. No previous comments provided by Public Works staff during a previous consent application. I know that the subject lands will be only permitted one entrance under the township's road entrance policies. And Cabot Creek Conservation Authority has commented they have no concerns to the application and no comments have been received from members of the public to date. And that concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you. And Clerk Adams, have you received any additional written submissions?
There have been no additional submissions received.
Thank you. Is there anyone attending in person or via Zoom wishes to comment?
They are on there.
If you are in attendance and wish to comment, we're ready to hear you.
We don't really have anything to comment on. I think we're just, yeah, waiting.
Great. Thank you for letting us know. Any member of council have any questions or comments? Counselor Wilson?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We just had a application for a shop in Orwell. And it was in front of the house, and that was an issue. This is well in front of it and not on a curve in the highway. So not sure why that is okay now. And you had the question about, well, the driveway. It's gonna be tricky getting it in there. That's all.
And did you wish for Mr. Steele to comment further on those concerns?
The initial drawings had the driveway going straight out to the road, which I mean, makes sense, but is not allowed. So just curious as to where they're gonna shoehorn that in through there with a well in the other yard. But I'm sure there is a way to do it. It's just gonna be tight.
Thank you for those. Counselor Glinski?
Madam Mayor, since this isn't part of a hamlet, we're establishing a residence here. Why is it being allowed when the provincial policy statement does not allow for agricultural land that isn't in a hamlet to be subdivided for residential purposes? Thank you.
Mr. Steele, could you comment on this question?
Certainly. So the provincial policy statement does have policies that prohibit residential lot creation for new lots that are within agricultural lands. In this case, as part of Official Plan Amendment 20 to the township's official plan, it intended to permit secondary dwelling units that are accessory to the primary dwellings on rural properties. That would allow for cases of people having either within their dwelling or an accessory building, another unit that could support being rented out or accommodate family for farm succession or those similar matters. So in this case, it's not creating new lots or permitting new lots to be developed elsewhere that can increase or to fragment land or cause other impacts to agricultural land, but it's simply providing an accessory unit that is or that is subordinate to the main primary dwelling on the property.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, Mr. Wilson, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, Chester and I already voted against this the first time it came through. This is just a blueprint on how to get another lot. So just get ready for some more of these if this passes.
Thank you for those comments. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a little history lesson. We have done this a couple of times before. We did one down by just south of the police college on that corner there, and there's one in Kingsmill Corner, and it's accessory units for maybe parents that need help if they want to help you or whatever, but I don't think you'd ever sever the lot off. That's part of the stipulation. That actually the home's only supposed to last 20 years or something that we were told, but I never believed that. But anyway, just we have done it before. Thank you.
Counselor Glinski, follow-up?
Following up to what Councillor Widner, Deputy Mayor. Well, I had half of it, right? Anyway, next to the police college on that corner, that was a granny flat that was created there. And I don't think I saw anything that said granny flat in this situation, but maybe it is. I don't know. Could someone clarify that?
Mr. Steele, can you comment on the secondary dwelling, granny flat, or sort of interchangeable terms?
Through Madam Mayor, so yeah, previously, it permitted, granny flats or garden suites was the term used under the Planning Act to permit temporary sort of homes after a period of 20 years. However, with changes to policies, this would be a sort of different distinction of a secondary dwelling that'd be on a more permanent basis be permitted. Typically, that like temporary garden suites were permitted for things like farm labor or other sort of temporary dwellings, whereas in this case, with changes under the township's official plan, it'd be more on a permanent basis that this would be permitted.
Right, so that 20-year period no longer applies to secondary dwellings. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any further questions? If there are no further questions, then please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of this proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. And if there's no further discussion, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report with the following resolutions.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment application of David and Judy Manel relating to the property located at Part Lot 22, Concession 3, Part 1 of Registered Plan 11R6019, and known municipally as 51048 and 51200 Vienna Line be adjourned at 7:57 p.m.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? That's carried.
The report number DS 23-37 entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application of Judy and David Manel, authorized agent Helena Zacharias be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application D14Z10-23 of Judy and David Manel, authorized agent Helena Zacharias relating to the property located at Part Lot 22, Concession 3, Part 1 of Registered Plan 11R6019, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 51048 and 51200, Vienna Line be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. I believe those are all your reports, Mr. Steele, or do we have you further?
One more
Oh,
consent.
Well, we will see you later on the agenda, so I won't wish you Merry Christmas just yet. All right, so we'll move on to reports of departments. The first report, Director of Public Works, Mr. Gotby. Can you speak to the request for access over unopened road allowance at 5143 Ron McNeil Line?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. Report PW 2364 is just that, a report with respect to a request for access over the unopened road allowance, basically that runs from Pressy Road to Ron McNeil Line. As you are aware, there was a previous zoning bylaw amendment that had gone to OLT, and the decision has then been issued to permit a 2.5-story, 6-unit apartment building on what is currently a vacant lot on Ron McNeil Line. As part of that, or after that decision had been made, the Zelenka Primo Limited, who is acting as the agent on behalf of the property owner, has submitted a report seeking access over that unopened road allowance to service this property. To summarize it relatively easily, if you go to page 104 and 105 of your agenda package, you can see the visuals of 3 of the options that they have provided. If you look on figure 1 on page 104, you can see where they have the part of their proposal was to continue to utilize that unopened road allowance as an access point to the rear of the building that they're proposing to build. The issue that we have with this is that it is an unopened road allowance. there would need to be agreements in place for maintenance and repair of that. It is currently acting as or it has historically acted as a shared driveway between the two properties that when the two houses were there, the one at 51415 Ron McNeil line and 51403 Ron McNeil line is the property that has currently been demolished and is looking to be rebuilt as the apartment. So for many years, they both utilized a driveway that was there. The option one that has been proposed would be to continue an arrangement similar to this. As I had mentioned, we do have concerns with liabilities and maintenance and access there. So option two is a proposal that they have as well, where they would look to run a new entrance basically along the west side of that unopened road allowance. And you can see the slightly different lot configuration there. That's on page 105. Option three is essentially just a mirror flip of option two. When staff reviewed this, we did decide to take a little bigger look at this area as a whole. And from that, we have kind of come to the conclusion that it may be beneficial for the municipality to look at deeming this to be surplus land and disposing of this unopened road allowance. What that does is it eliminates any potential and future liabilities that the municipality would have for injury or any claims that could happen due to the fact that it is municipal property. At the end of the day, we've examined it from a public works standpoint, and we don't see any future purpose or need to own and maintain or to further develop this from a public works standpoint. So with that, I did go and have an initial conversation with the Peters who live at 51415 Ron McNeil line. They're the house that are currently utilizing the shared driveway. Just to kind of gauge their interest, if they would even entertain this, because in order to look at doing something like this, they would also need to establish a new driveway access. There's some trees in the way. And through that conversation, they did seem to express an interest in this. So from that point, I've drafted this report just to seek some direction from council, whether there is an appetite to look at disposing of this. And if so, I would like to be able to sit down with the property owners that are currently abutting this unopened road allowance and figure out what we could do for disposal. Just as a note, it is referenced in the report on page 99 that Malahide bylaw 07-72 sale of land is what the kind of outlines the process that we currently have in place for the disposal of surplus land. It's called sale of land, but within that bylaw, there is section 4.1, which basically states that if the municipality deems the land to be surplus to our needs, we may dispose of it to the abutting property owners for a minimal or token purchase price. So those details would be something that we would obviously have to come back to council with once I am able to have some further conversations with these property owners, if that is council's desire. Just as a note, I would note that there's two of the adjacent property owners are here. That I don't know. I know it's slightly out of order to allow them to speak or anything, but I mean, they are here, and I did speak with them briefly prior to this meeting, and they are generally supportive of this as well. So if council has any further questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, so thank you for that. And so then just to clarify, for discussion and decision this evening is a decision for disposal and then direction to just enter into conversations. There's nothing else further being formally or specifically decided, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Open it up for questions or comments. Counselor Wilson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my question was going to be, what do the neighbors have to say about it? So that's, you know, it's, they're gonna be the ones most directly affected by it. And I'd certainly like to hear what you have to say about it.
So just to respect the procedure of the meeting, so the decision this evening would be to have conversations. So I agree with you. We definitely need to hear what the property owners involved have to say. But so for now, on the report, that we can always go through a delegation process in future meetings, depending how the conversations and negotiations go, if that is okay, because I agree with you, Counselor Wilson, that's necessary. Counselor Glinski?
Madam Mayor, just a couple of comments. When we were first ordered that we had to go along with this, I asked whether it was stipulated that this unopened right of way would go to the new building, and the answer at that time was that there was no such stipulation. And the second thing that I just kind of wondering about, since the people have been using this for a number of years, at what point does squatters' right take place to override this land going to anybody else but them? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Godby, did you wish to comment on this right away, or?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I'm by no means an expert on the squatters' rights side of things, although I do believe that that does not necessarily apply to municipal lands, especially road right-of-ways. It is deemed an unopened road allowance, and it still will remain that way.
Thank you. So I had Counselor Leach, then Deputy Mayor, and then Counselor Cerna.
To
Counselor Leach.
you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Director Godby and staff for looking outside the box and bringing other solutions to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Just through to Mr. Godby. I guess if I'm hearing this right, one of the options would be to split this thing right down the middle, and they all get a chance to put their properties back the way they should be. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? I think that would probably work. I did talk to one individual tonight and he said, yeah, that would be great for them. So
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, that is essentially what I was kind of envisioning here. That is typically what would happen in these types of scenarios is unless one property for whatever reason did not want the additional land, then you may look at, giving it all to one side or the other, but typically they split them down the middle evenly amongst those abutting owners. Just as a side note, one of the other things that sometimes is done with some of these properties is they may be deemed surplus and then sold to someone else. In this case, I would not see there ever being any need or desire to do anything of that nature, mainly because it's not developable for anything else. It's not like somebody else could buy it and build a home or do anything on it. It's such a small, narrow piece of land that it's not functional to anyone else other than perhaps those budding landowners.
thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Cerna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, we turned this down, and what bothers me now is they appealed it, and now they're coming up that to make this work, they need more land. And it's forcing the neighbors to come up with money to buy something that they haven't had to buy for a long time. So just out of the blue now, they have to make it work and to do things properly. They have to buy half a road allowance that they've been using for years. And that doesn't seem fair to me, that something we've turned down that these people appealed, that somebody in Toronto or wherever said, no, your decision's not good. We're gonna overturn it. And all of a sudden, these other people say, okay, that's good. Now we're gonna build a sixplex. But we want this road allowance that, like Counselor Lindsay said, initially, no, they didn't need it. Now they need it. And the neighbors are forced, if they want to keep doing what they've done for eons, have to come up and buy it. Now,
Let's clarify that point further because I don't want any misunderstanding.
go ahead.
On that point. Mr. Gobby, please comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cerna. I guess perhaps a bit of the misunderstanding is here that the three options that were proposed by the ones looking to build the sixplex were simply options. We could choose to reject all those, and we could choose to leave this situation completely as is. Ultimately, when they want to develop, they're going to need our approval on what they're going to do, whether it's an entrance permit that's going to ultimately be through the County of Elgin, who has been briefed on this and is supportive of whatever we choose to do. But ultimately, they're asking to continue to use that road allowance as an entrance point or have to put in their own new entrance in order to build a new apartment there. We could simply say, no, you're not allowed to use this road allowance. We don't have to convey any of this land. It was basically brought forward from a staff perspective as it doesn't serve us a purpose. So now is a time that, there's things going on here, and, if there's going to be significant changes made to this area, it kind of pairs well with the timing. For the lack of a better term, I kind of looked at it as trying to make a little bit of lemonade for some of the neighbors, recognizing that this development was not necessarily wanted, and that maybe a bit of saving grace out of that could be that, they get a little bit of extra land. The neighbors immediately to the east no longer have to share a driveway with what could potentially be a sixplex. They express their desire to want to, put in their own driveway and have a fence separating them from that development. So it was just to kind of initiate those conversations, and it's not, it was not intended to suggest that there was any kind of force being put on by those who want to do the sixplex. They simply started the conversation about this road allowance, and rather than just running with their three suggestions, I'm posing this possible fourth scenario, which might be a little bit better for those in the immediate area.
Thank you for that clarification. So yes, it is not needed by the developers. Councillor Cerna.
Okay, but we turned down their initial proposal. So if they were just gonna build a single family home there, would they need the road allowance? Or would the road allowance come to play?
Whatever they decide to build, the road allowance is not needed. So the parcel as it stands was sufficient.
Okay,
And it was approved on its own merit with the existing land. This is initiated by staff.
okay, fine.
Yeah.
So if we don't approve the road allowance, we look like hell, right? Yes.
I think we're trying to propose, I don't know that I would characterize it like that. I think staff is trying to propose
Okay.
a solution that, or, an idea that kind of makes, I would say, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, makes lemonade out of a
I-
situation where there's limited control.
I have another point, though, I'd like to make on, and Mr. Gobby said it about selling it for a token price. I remember a few years back, I approached council about selling a closed road allowance to a farmer. And I asked about it. It was a closed road allowance that went from concession to concession. It came with all the liabilities and everything. And it it wasn't for sale for a token price. By the time they figured it out, because of its length and its width, it came to an astronomical price because of the price of land. And the farmer looked and shook his head because it was just a mess. And we still own it today. And it's still a mess. And they weren't going to buy it to clean it up and fix it. So we still have this mess and the liability and everything. So if you're going to suggest selling something for a token price here, then if somebody wants to clean up a mess, it should be a token price to them. Or if you're going to charge somebody an arm and a leg for a mess here, then you better charge them an arm and a leg over here. You can't go, bounce here, there, and everywhere. If this is the price there, it's got to stay standard all over the township. That's my opinion. You guys do what you want.
Thank you,
Okay,
Councilor Cerna.
thank you.
So again, for discussion this evening is just direction to enter into negotiation. So we don't know what the token is. We're just addressing the bylaw at this point, the way it is written. One more comment?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, like, it's sort of piggybacking on what Rick had to say. We didn't want this thing to start with. If they get an extra strip of land, is a 6-plex going to turn into an 8-plex? Now they've got an extra 30 feet or whatever the allowance may be. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it's in the real estate advertisements. When it went up for sale again, they had 8-plex mentioned, and oh no, it's just going to be 6. Well, why the hell did you mention 8? And if there's extra land, does that mean they'll try to shoehorn more in there? Don't know. Just part of the equation.
Mr. Godby, did you wish to comment on that aspect?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to council. That's a very good point. I don't have an answer for that, but it is something that will definitely be looked at because I do appreciate the concern that you do have and you raise with that. And same with Councillor Cerna with regards to assessed and appraised values. That would typically be a normal process that we would look at as to what the appraised value of that might be. And if that is something that council desires out of this, that is something that can easily be done in order to come back with a more informed opinion on property value.
Thank you, Mr. Godby. And I think, Mr. Steele, you are with us. Do you wish to comment on the on some of the questions that were raised?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to comment on the zoning and density question. First, just a note, in the original application made by the applicant, at the time we're proposing to use the road allowance, and we're just able to meet the requirements for things like, I think it was front yard setback was the reduction been proposed, but I think for most part it was just able to meet parking and some of the other requirements. So in terms of, I think there would be some limitation, like the any development still has to adhere to all the other zoning standards under the bylaw. And so from that, it may be difficult to achieve greater density from this addition if during the original application, they were intended to use the entire road allowance as a shared access. So just wanted to note that any development will have to adhere to all their standards of the zoning bylaw, including things like height, building setbacks, parking requirements that be applied.
Yeah, and we can't speculate about why it was advertised that way, but the OLT ruling is specific as to which the standards that will be applied. And want to make sure we maintain the discussion on the specific topic at hand. So again, I remind council the decision this evening is to whether we want to declare the open road allowance as surplus and whether we want to direct staff to enter into discussions with the community. So those are the 2 points for discussions this evening. Deputy Mayor Whitner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. I don't know if Jason would know the answer or not, but how old is this on open road allowance? Does it go back like 50 years? It seems when it was created, it wasn't done right. 'Cause
Through through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor, I do not know how old that is. It does look like it's been there for quite some time based on the lot fabric of the village. It's not uncommon for some of these smaller road accesses and laneways to have been established. I mean, you see a few of the other ones around the village. So I can only assume that it was likely done with some of those original plans for the village of Springfield. This one in particular, just as to note, is only approximately 16 feet wide.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's not a huge amount of land that we're talking about. It's not a full on 66-foot road allowance we're talking. But all of those things would be flushed out as we can sit down, if that's council's desire, to sit down and have some of these more detailed discussions with the adjoining property owners. And ultimately, it would be coming back to council for any further direction or decision.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Through you, your worship, from what I've heard, I think everybody here has the same concern. They want the neighbors to be happy because of what happened. Well, if we want the neighbors to be happy, I think we should allow staff to talk to them, work out a deal, and make them happy at the end of the day. So I totally support moving forward with the process.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, so we'll proceed with the resolution then.
The report number PW 23-64 entitled 51403 Ron McNeil Line, request for access over unopened road allowance be received, and that council declare the unopened road allowance between Ron McNeil Line and Pressy Road to be surplus to municipal needs, and further that staff further engage the four property owners abutting the unopened road allowance between Ron McNeil Line and Pressy Road to negotiate the conveyance of the unopened road allowance.
Thank you. Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda, Mr. Godby, again, your turn, this time to discuss the Port Bruce Provincial Park Maintenance Agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. Report PW 2363. The purpose of this report is basically to draw attention to the fact that the existing agreement that the Township of Malahide has with the province of Ontario for maintenance and repair responsibilities at the Port Bruce Provincial Park, which includes the washrooms, tennis courts, the parking lot, picnic area, and the beach is currently set to expire at the end of this calendar year. We have since been approached by the province seeking information on our desire to enter into another agreement to continue this services for the province at the provincial park. The main purpose of this report is to point out that this is a service that the municipality provides to the province for which we receive no compensation. The agreement as structured and is attached to to this report basically has laid out the terms and conditions in which Malahide is to treat this provincial asset as far as, maintenance standards, the pieces of infrastructure and provincial assets that are to be maintained. And it does very clearly state that no compensation is to be given to the municipality for this. So prior to having any kind of extension to an agreement of this nature, it felt it to be pertinent to bring this back to council to definitely get some direction on whether that or this arrangement is still satisfactory to the township, and to recognize that we do track the majority of our costs since 2019 when this agreement, this particular agreement took place. And we're averaging in and around the $20,000 a year of cost to perform the services as outlined. So with this information, it's kind of my goal to have council direct us to have some discussions with the province and see if there is any kind of wiggle room on their end as to providing some level of compensation or some decreased perhaps service level for this work that we are doing on their behalf. With that, I'll open it up for any and many questions.
And once again, the decision for a discussion this evening is simply to direct staff to enter into negotiations and not going into the details of the agreement. Do we wish to negotiate, and do we wish to negotiate with a view to seek compensation? I think that's the decision on the table. So with that reminder, Councillor Cerna.
Definitely want to negotiate. And if they're not going to pay, then there should be no say on their behalf. And I don't know what we do, but if it's costing us $20,000 a year, I don't know what we get out of it. I don't know what we have to do. But if they don't want to pay for it, and then tell them to shove it up their keister. It's that simple. I wouldn't do diddly for them.
Okay, so just to put some context, this is an agreement that was mutually signed between the township and the province. So this was agreeable. This was something, it's called an agreement. So now all I'm saying is that at the time, so this did not happen to Malahide. It was a decision, it was an agreement signed by council. So what staff is bringing to us is that now we have a bit more experience, we have a bit more knowledge as to the actual costs and the various challenges in fully providing the service described in the agreement. So it's time for renegotiation. Any other comments or questions?
I have a follow-up.
Councillor Cerna.
I just saw the two people that signed there. They're no longer here.
Okay, but that's,
So we're going to renegotiate.
yes, we're renegotiating because the agreement is coming to an end.
So I just told you what we need to do. There's our
It's
renew-
council's decision, yes.
Well,
Thank you.
I hope we all
Any further
vote.
questions or comments? Councillor Leach.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So do we know what happened prior to this agreement, or if we chose not to continue with the agreement, what would happen to the park?
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
Mr. Gombe.
So yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Leach. That would be a major point of discussion that we would have to have with the province. I don't have all the pure background facts as to how we ended up in this scenario, other than to say that it's my understanding that at some point it was felt that the provincial standard for the care that was being kept of that park was not up to local expectations. And from that, the council of the day took it upon themselves to look after that as a benefit to the local community, rather than leaving that in the hands of the province. So at that time, it started in 2018. We entered an agreement with the MNRF. And then following that, after that 1 year kind of trial period, they entered into a 5-year agreement in 2019 with, at that point, became the MECP.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jason, you're pretty well right in your assumption I was on then, and I think Port Burrell Provincial Park was looking after it for us, and it just got where they weren't doing a good job. We were getting a lot of complaints about the way it was being looked after. They wouldn't step up and do what they should have done, in my opinion. So we're either on the hook, or we're getting a lot of hostility from ratepayers about how messy it was. But I thought it was a dumb deal at the time. Here, we'll pay you and we'll do it. Didn't make any sense. So I would love to see us renegotiate, but what's our choices? If we don't do it, it'll go back to Port Burwell and we'll bring back to our same level of crappy service. We need to renegotiate the service, I think, but anyway, good luck with that. Thank you.
Again, every decision needs to be taken into context, so a change would not be a criticism of the past that according to the circumstances described, that was the best solution at the time. Now we're in a position to at least have a discussion, and so we appreciate bringing that forward. And I think it was mentioned, there's a lot of interest in the community, also not only on not so much on the compensation, but I think from the community perspective, there's also the clarification of the standard of like a naturalized beach, and that has been a bit contentious with varying levels and lake levels. Then, so what does that mean in terms of 200 meters? And so now we have more experience, we have more knowledge, so we can have a more informed negotiation, and probably will seek some input from the community as well. Any further comments or questions then? And if not, oh, Councillor Glinski?
Madam Mayor, the amount stated for 23, $18,573.78. That does not include everything. That's, I don't know what that includes, but the cleanup, if we had a cleanup done, there's another amount that would have to be added to that, is $4,200 annually. So we're not talking about 18,000 and change. We're talking about 22,000 and change. Thank you.
We'll make sure we'll take all costs into consideration. So may I have the resolution? Clerk Adams, please.
That report number PW 23-63 entitled Port Bruce Provincial Park Maintenance Agreement be received, and that staff be directed to enter discussions with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to negotiate a new agreement, including but not limited to possible revisions to the compensation model and the performance and maintenance standards described in Appendix B and C.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Godby. Next, we'll move to Director Boyland. You have a couple of reports for us, starting with the applications for assessment adjustments under Section 357, 358 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is to request that council approve assessment reductions applied for under Section 357 of the Municipal Act. Section 357 requires the township to hold an open public meeting for applications to be considered by council. As required under the Act, affected property owners were provided at least 14 days notice prior to tonight's meeting. Included in Schedule A of my report are 4 applications whereby structures were demolished. The applications in questions are straightforward. The assessments relating to the demolition of structures should clearly result in a assessment reduction for the associated properties. As such, staff agree with MPAC's recommendation to approve all applications, resulting in foregone property tax revenue in the amount of $2,700, which is accommodated through the 2023 budget.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments? Seeing none, the resolution.
The report number FIN 23-21 titled Applications for Assessment Adjustments under Section 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act 2001 be received, and that pursuant to Section 357A and D of the Municipal Act 2001, the Township's treasurer be authorized to amend the Township's tax collection roll for the amount of $6,225.21.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Glinski moves, Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Over to you again, Director Boylan, for the Harvest Bowl grant application.
Thank you. Harvest Bowl, who, as you know, occupies the South Dorchester Community Hall to prepare vegetables and assemble soup kits, is requesting their 2023 facility rental fees be waived and for council to consider waiving their facility rental fees for 2024 as well. As council has typically supported Harvest Bowl in a similar fashion through the community grants process, the recommendation in my report is for council to go ahead and waive Harvest Bowl's 2023 facility rental fees as requested in the amount of $1,580.16 and defer consideration of their 2024 request to 2024 budget deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments? Councillor Lewis.
Through you, your worship, I'm just not wondering if this shouldn't be deferred until the committee gets together and makes the actual decision, being there was a committee put together to make these decisions. Yeah, I'm just wondering.
And would your suggestion be that both components be considered as by the committee?
Yes, being it's the ratepayers' money we're spending, I would 100% say both components should be.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further comments on that or questions? Councillor Wilson?
I think the work that this group does is very charitable and filling some bellies that need filling. So not against what you're saying, but I'll support pretty much what they're asking for without any trouble.
Yeah, and I think probably all of our grant applicants contribute to charitable causes. So I think for the sake of consistency and fairness, I think that would be a fair request to include this consideration or to refer this consideration to the committee and to bring it back for consideration by council. I think I'm seeing consensus around that. Clerk Adams, adjust the resolution.
Just to clarify, both things are going to go to the committee or?
Yes.
All right.
So that the two recommendations will be referred to the committee for deliberation.
That report number FIN 23-22 entitled Harvest Bowl Grant Applications be received, and that the facility Harvest Bowl's 2023 facility rentals in the amount of $1,580.16 be deferred, and that the Harvest Bowl's 2024 community grant application be received and referred to the community grant committee for further review.
Well done. Mover and seconder. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Cerna seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Boylan. We'll call the deputy mayor back in. Next on the agenda is the Elgin County and LMP's Joint Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan for 2024 to 2026. Clerk Adams, you wish to speak to this item, please?
And this is a policy based on the Joint Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan developed with Elgin County. There isn't provincial legislation requiring municipalities to have such a plan, but the plan does meet the legislative requirement of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Local municipal partners were responsible for providing a list of progress and goals to incorporate in the joint DEI plan. Local municipal partners will oversee the implementation of the goals set in this plan between 2024 and 2026. The joint DEI plan has been approved by County Council and is being circulated to the local municipal partner councils for approval at this time. If you have any further questions, I can answer those.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have the resolution, please?
The report number clerk 2306 entitled Elgin County and LMP's Joint Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan 2024 to 2026 be received and that the plan be approved.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves. Counselor Glinski seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Next, we're back to Mr. Steele. We have an application for consent. We can turn it over to you. Consent to sever.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before council tonight is a consent application for 53367 Nova Scotia Line. The purpose of this application is to sever a surplus farm dwelling from the surrounding agricultural farm parcel. Such lands contain a single detached dwelling as well as an accessory structure and is serviced by municipal water. An additional water course crosses through the northern end of the subject lands and separates the existing buildings from Nova Scotia Line. And so access is provided to the existing dwelling over an existing culvert. And so in addition with the surplus farm dwelling severance, the applicant is also seeking an easement that would provide rights of access, rights of vehicular access over the existing culvert and driveway, as well as recognize an easement for provision of the existing municipal water connection to the existing dwelling. Staff reviewed the application against the criteria for surplus farm dwellings under the provincial policy statement and official plans, and have no conditions provided that the no concerns provided that the recommended conditions are included with any conditional approval. So staff recommending be supported by council, and those recommended conditions be forwarded to Land Division Committee for its consideration. That concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you for that. Questions or comments? Counselor Leach?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Steele, why is it such an odd shaped little piece that has two kind of flags on each side of it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So perhaps if council members turn attention to page 184 of the agenda package to the report map. So the area shown in red is the actual property boundary of the proposed severed parcel. Because the zoning bylaw requires that any lot have frontage on a municipal road, that's why that 20-meter section is provided. However, due to the water course that runs through the property, access is currently attained over the existing laneway that runs through the center, which is that orange or the purple highlighted area. And so that is the purple area is actually the area that the easement would apply to. And that'd be for the access as well as permitting the municipal water connection that it currently exists for Nova Scotia Line and runs underneath there to continue to be provided to the existing dwelling in its location. So the actual boundaries of the severed parcel are the red areas, and to ensure that sort of that center piece highlighted in yellow remains with the retained farmland and continues to be used for agricultural production. The easement is proposed that would prevent or allows for a smaller severed lot to be provided.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any further questions or comments? So the resolution, please.
The report number DS 23-35 entitled Application for Consent to Sever number E5-24 of Gregory Underhill Farms Limited Co. Civic Planning Solutions Inc. be received, and that the application for consent to sever of Gregory Underhill Farms Limited Co. Civic Planning Solutions Inc. relating to the property located at part of lots 34 and 35, concession 1, part 4 of 11R 5475, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 53367 Nova Scotia Line be supported for the reasons set out in this report, and that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Thank you. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Counselor Cerna moves, Counselor Wilson seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Steele. Now we'll wish you happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you. Next on the agenda is reports of committees and outside boards. There are 4 items. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, the resolution.
That the following 4 reports of the committees and outside boards be noted and filed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Next is correspondence. We have 5 items. Anyone wishes to comment or endorse? Counselor Wilson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the stuff that Greater Sudbury is going through is a bit of a shock. And I think if we don't support them, it may end up biting us at some point, you know, hopefully that's not the case, but to be put in that situation through no fault of your own, I can't believe the courts made the decisions that they did. That doesn't make sense to me, and I think we should be supporting them on this one.
Any objections? No? Counselor Leach?
I think it would benefit us to support the Township of Clearview with their cemetery transfer and abandonment, given that we are in similar circumstances.
Thank you for that as well. Any further comments? Okay, so the resolution, please.
That item number 4 and 5 be supported and that the remaining items be noted and filed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis moves, Counselor Glinski seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. Next on the agenda is other business. Seeing none this evening, we'll proceed to bylaws. Now you can see in this section, so we have a number of bylaws that are ready to be passed. But we did agree to provide some feedback on the last one, the municipal law enforcement policy. So as you can see from what was submitted in the package, there has been feedback received and then lots of revisions to achieve, you know, the clarity and the changes that were requested. So I don't know if CO Diaz, do you want to comment further?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This was, again, just a few edits that we did again for clarity and to make sure that it communicates better and that feedback that we had from the initial council meeting, which was presented, allowed us to address some of those issues. That being said, we're certainly looking forward to any other further questions or inquiries to ensure that we have a policy that works for council and residents.
Thank you. So any questions or comments on that particular bylaw, proposed bylaw? Counselor Glinski.
Madam Mayor, number 5, page 228, no delegation to shall be permitted by any person concerned with or the subject matter of the municipal bylaw complaint. So to me, that means that that if somebody out there in in our area does not agree with something, they cannot come to council with a concern. They just have to go by whatever the bylaw enforcement officer says. And I don't think that is the way it's been in the past. We've always been able to have a delegation or whatever with a letter requesting for an audience with the council. And now I think we're saying that we can't do that. And I don't agree with that. I think the public should always have the right to send a letter to us and as a delegation come and express their point of view.
CO Diaz, you wish to comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you, and it's an excellent question, Councillor Glinski. It's true. It is a high threshold in terms of what's being proposed here. Again, when it comes to members of the public having access to bring forward delegations, that's something that should generally be allowed in order to hear what is important to residents. That being said, this section here, in order to clarify what's being proposed, is particularly pertaining to a municipal bylaw complaint. It's again with regard to the specific roles that are going to be put in place, the role of the bylaw enforcement officer and the role of council. So essentially what's being stated here is that when a bylaw complaint is initiated, the bylaw officer has to first determine, is there a bylaw violation? If there is such a bylaw violation, then proceed with steps of a thorough investigation. So they have to take notes at every step and a point and determine, does a violation exist or does it not? If the violation does exist, the next step is then to move towards how are we going to make sure that this violation can be addressed? Is it going to be remedied? Does an order have to be issued? Do you go the route of potentially looking at fines? Do you go the route of a court order? And while all of this is happening during an investigation, I think it will make things very complex and muddy if then a complainant or potentially the person who is the violator comes forward with a delegation request in the middle of that investigation, and it just muddies the waters a bit. With the whole investigation process when it comes to bylaw is something that is, again, appealable through courts. Any sort of bylaws that are passed through the municipality, like any legislation, whether it's provincial or federal, can be challenged, and there is a means to do that. That being said, once the investigation process is done and is closed, certainly if any party is unhappy with the outcome, they can certainly at that point then bring it to council's attention. So there is a means to allow it to happen. Is just, again, a process to allow governance for the roles of the bylaw enforcement officer, allow them the arm's length to do their investigation and come to a conclusion that doesn't allow too much intervention from all parties. They can do their investigation arm's length and come to conclusions that way. That being said, at the very end, right, council can request to see how did the bylaw officer come to this conclusion and look through the process of how they reached where they reached.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Leach?
Through you, Madam Mayor, is there somewhere in the bylaw that stipulation or ability to come post investigation is stated?
I don't think specifically, but that would be, I think, something that would generally should be allowed. I mean, in terms of any municipal bylaws that are passed, I think it's a constant evolution to make sure that it properly meets the needs of the municipality today. And certainly some old bylaws that may exist may have certain rules that are no longer applicable today or relevant, right? Or we're constantly having to change it. So I think it's always an opportunity for anyone in terms of general questions with regard to a bylaw, you know, to have the opportunity to bring forward their concerns, even having gone through the process, right? And whatever conclusion was reached with that investigation, once that investigation is done, right, they may say that this bylaw is really not fair. It has problems due to this, and this. So it may not specifically be there in this particular bylaw, mainly because, again, this process is looking, the bylaw here is just stating, again, the steps that are taken during an investigation and doesn't necessarily go into the detail of reviewing bylaws thereafter.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to differentiate the delegation at a council meeting. A council meeting is a public meeting. And so a delegation is to discuss a public matter. So So it would be a more general discussion around, is the bylaw working, or is as opposed to a specific violation, which then is no longer a matter of the public that should be dealt in public. So we'll use that criteria to differentiate. Further questions or comments? Yes, thank you for the work that was done on that. I think this version is clearer and we did mention it would be a trial and error. Could always be some adjustments as we implement it. That's how you discover what works. But I think for now we're in good shape. So thank you for all that work. I think we can pass all the bylaws at once if there are no, or do you wish to? Yes, okay, so we'll do it. We'll do one resolution for the first, was it 5? The first bylaws? Okay,
That the following bylaws be considered read at first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed. Bylaw 2389, use of county CEMC. Bylaw 2386, 2024 municipal water rates. Bylaw number 2387, 2024 municipal sewage rates. Bylaw 2385, Mennel Zacharias rezoning. Bylaw number 2383, B&A Reimer rezoning, and bylaw 2384, Underhill rezoning.
mover and seconder. Counselor Serna moves, Counselor Lewis seconds, all in favor? And that's carried. And then the municipal law enforcement policy bylaw.
That the following bylaw be considered read at first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed. Bylaw number 2390, municipal law enforcement policy.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner. Seconder Counselor Leach. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And there's nothing else in open session, so we will proceed to a closed session. May I have the resolution, please?
The council move into closed session at 8:57 PM pursuant to section 239-2 of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following: a labor relations or employee negotiations matter regarding staff performance reviews, HR policy updates, and QP contract negotiations, section 239-2D, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, section 239-2B.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Serna moves. Counselor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That's carried. Come back, everyone. We're now out of closed session. And the resolutions from the discussion.
So regarding staff performance reviews, that the municipal staff be directed to award the appropriate grade level advancements to all eligible non-union and management municipal staff effective January 1st, 2024.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Serna moves. Counselor Glinski seconds. All in favor? That's carried.
That staff were given direction by council on the following items that were discussed in closed session: a labor relations or employee negotiations matter regarding to an HR policy and QP contract negotiations, and a personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves. Counselor Lewis seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. We can move on to confirmatory bylaw.
That bylaw number 2388 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third reading and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Wilson moved. Counselor Leach seconds. All in favor? It's carried. And adjournment.
The council adjourns its meeting at 9:58 PM to meet again on January 18th, 2024 at 7:30 PM.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Counselor Serna seconds. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays. We'll be ready for 2024.